coming to my presentation, especially my mom, my dad, my Grandma Teresa, my Pappy Leo, and my friend Noah, and my cohort member Brandon. So start off with my presentation. My journey to agricultural education is a bit different from some of my cohort members because I didn't come up through an ag ed program. I came up through just regular high school, didn't even find out ag ed was a thing until I got into college, and I decided that this was what I wanted to do with my life. I have prepared this semester to go out in this upcoming spring to perform my student teaching, and this is just a snapshot of what I've done so far and what I plan to achieve over the course of the spring. So, what do I want? There's three essential questions that we were to answer in our presentations, and they're: what do I want to be, how have I engaged, and how will I make the most of my student teaching experience? I'll start off with the first question of who do I want to be. So here's a quick snapshot of my teaching philosophy. I want to be able to create an engaging environment in my classroom where my students will enjoy being there and want to learn the material. I want to have the varied teaching methods so that we're not doing the same thing every day. We're not lecturing every day, because that's what I came up through and I did not enjoy that form of education. I want my students to grow up to be confident and compassionate people, where that they know what they want to do with their lives. They know how to interact with other people so that they don't have issues with communication, and that they know how to get what they want, or how to get their point across in what they want to do with their lives. And I also want to foster a growth in community pride. I want my students to be proud of the town that they grew up in. I want them to love it and want to come back to it whenever they've gone off to college, and want to come back to set down their own roots to grow their own family in their town. So in order to create and maintain this teaching philosophy, I will need to have a way to manage my classroom. So for my classroom management, I have procedures that I would like to follow. I have expectations I want my students to meet, and consequences for if they do not meet these expectations. So I'll start off with the classroom procedures. At the start of class, I want my students to take out the classroom materials that they're going to need for class. So get out your textbooks, your notebooks, just anything that you're going to need for class that day. Once they have their materials out, they'll complete their Do Now question, which is just something to help spark their interest in the lesson that they're going to be learning about that day, or a drawback to the previous lesson to see what they remember from the previous class. Once they have that done, they're going to do check their workspace. That's if we have a lab that they're doing. So in one of the classes that my cooperating teacher, Dr. McLean, teaches, they have a plant that they propagate throughout the course of their semester. So part of their daily routine is making sure that their plant is taken care of, making sure it has water, or making sure that any part of the experiments they're doing on it is taken care of. Once they have that taken care of, I want my students to wait for the instruction to start, which is important. If all the students are talking at the same time, they're not going to hear the start of the instruction. And then ask questions throughout the lesson, just so that I know that they're engaged and that I can help answer any questions that they have and clear up any miscommunication that might be going on. Expectations. I want my classroom to be, like I said, an open environment where they're not afraid to make mistakes, where they want to grow and help each other. So I would like my students to be punctual, prepared, respectful, honest, and helpful. I think these are all good traits to help grow people as individuals and to create more compassionate students. Finally, the consequences. These are what will happen if the students do not meet my expectations, and the order in which these happen can change depending on the severity of what the students do or do not do. So it'll start off with a verbal warning. I don't want to get too extreme too quickly in most cases. So if a student is misbehaving, I will tell them that you should probably stop that behavior. I don't think that behavior is appropriate for this classroom setting. If the behavior continues, they'll get a written warning so that they know, oh, this is a serious behavior, you probably shouldn't be doing this. And after the written warning, I will make sure that their parents are informed of their behavior before I send them to the office, because I want the parents to play a part in correcting the behavior. If the parents don't know why, or if the parents don't know that their student is acting up in the classroom, they can't help you to correct that behavior, because if the parents don't think there's a problem with the student's behavior, they're not going to do anything about it. And if the parental informant doesn't work, then they'll be sent to the office where they'll talk to the school, either the principal or the head of the program administration, just to discuss why they're behaving the way they are and what they can do to correct their behavior. And if these actions don't work, then they'll get a detention. But one thing I didn't add, if the behavior is too extreme, for example, if we're in a shop environment and if we're in a shop environment and they're doing something that is extremely dangerous, they will be removed from the class right away, because that's not safe behavior. It's not something that can be tolerated in the classroom if they're putting themselves and other people at risk. So for my model program, what I would like to be able to get into one day, I would like to be in a multi-teacher program that has focuses in animal science, plant science, environmental and natural resources, and ag mechanics. I think these are some of the most important parts of agricultural education. And not only that, but you can build off of these areas and branch off into the other areas of agricultural sciences by using these areas as a starting point. And within this program, I would like to focus more on the environmental and natural resources side of the educational curriculum. So I would teach the students environmental science, so just the basics of what's going on in the world around you, what do you need to know about it, plant and animal identification, what common animals are found around where you live, how to properly handle and care for these animals, how to restrain them if you need to for whatever reason. And I will, as well as outdoor recreation and conservation. A lot of these activities are fun things to do, but they can also be ways that you help to manage the resources. So, for example, caving. If you're exploring a cave, you can monitor the bats that live there, the insects that live there, any reptiles and amphibians that live there. And if you don't have basic background in the safety of whenever you're caving, you might have a dangerous or a negative experience while you are in that situation. Finally, I would have a natural resources management component. This is where it all comes together, where they learn how to use the skills that they've acquired throughout the rest of the classes to actually manage a environmental system. This is one of the key parts of environmental education, because if people don't know what they need to do to maintain natural ecosystems, then they're probably going to face negative consequences in the long run, because the environment's not going to be managed the way it should be, and the resources will be used up too quickly, and they won't be able to replenish themselves. So, part of agricultural education is that it's a three-circle model. We have classroom instruction, we have supervised agricultural experiences, and we have the FFA leadership component. All three of these components come together, and the sweet spot in the center is where they're all working together to help grow the best possible student, or the best possible student leaders in your school for your program. So, to start out, one of the ways that I'm going to use the classroom and laboratory instruction is to do projects like the one I did for my Ag Mech class. I'm going to have them do fun activities to have them apply the skills that they learn in their classes. So one of the components of my Ag Mech class was we learned how to properly use woodshop equipment. So I used the skills that I learned in this class and that I've acquired through previous woodshop classes to build mini cornhole boards that are a fairly inexpensive project. I think they cost less than $10 to make for each one, and that's including, like, if you were to factor time in. So they're a very inexpensive project. For essay integration, this is a bit more difficult. I would want all of my students to do a supervised agricultural experience because this can help them in their own education. They will find an area that they are interested in, that they want to have a project in, and they will be able to build off of their own interests and create their own experience for what they want to do. So if a student is interested in raising beef cattle, they can start out with one cow and see what work goes into raising that cow, how expensive it is to raise that singular animal, before they decide down the line, oh, I want to start a beef ranch and I have no idea how to take care of cows. And I would also like to have my students do a Friday catch-up where one or two of the students each Friday would catch us up on where they are in their SAE, what they've been doing so far, what they've spent on it, what they plan to do next with it, and just general catch-up of how far they've gotten since the last time we talked to them about their SAE. Then I would have the FFA component. FFA is a large part of agricultural education because it's the leadership component. It helps to build students into the leaders that they can be one day. I wouldn't make FFA mandatory because if you were to make it mandatory, that would make students less inclined to participate, at least from my experience with what I've done with some students. But I would have an FFA day to try to get students interested in the FFA organization. By doing this, I would have students who are already in the program talk about it, get upcoming students interested in the program to see what it is actually all about and what they can do with it. And then once my students are in the FFA, I would like them all to have at least one CDE program, which is a career development event. And for this, I would just want them to gain experience in how to plan for an event, how to correctly get all of the information that you need to present what you were talking, or what you want to do and what you're going to try to do. And for the recruitment, I would use an agricultural fair, social media, and recruitment videos. These are all different ways that I would try to pull students into my program by showing what we're doing in the agricultural program, having the agricultural fair, bringing the students in, showing them the greenhouse, showing them the animal barn, showing them the shop areas, just to see what all we do in ag, that it's not just about the sows, cows, and plows, it's everything else that goes into agriculture. Social media, I would have students show what they're doing, but I would also make sure that any pictures going onto the social media were appropriate for the students to be giving. And I would have a recruitment video that just shows what we do on a regular basis. All right, community engagement. I would try to get the community involved as much as possible. At my cooperating center, there's different professionals in the area that help to train the CDE teams. And I think that that is a great way to both have the students get the best experience possible out of their CDE and to have to lower the workload a little bit on the teacher, because if you're trying to coach 16 different CDE teams, you're not going to give any of them the time and attention that they should get to properly perform in their CDE and to perform as well as you can get them to, or as they can. All right. So next question: how have I engaged in my agricultural in my journey to being an ag teacher? So I've taken these classes above, the Wildlife or Workforce Ed 450, and this class is important because it helps teach you about diversity in the workplace. And this is important for anywhere you work, but I think this is also going to be very important for where I am during my student teaching. The students that I will have come from all over the country because their parents, about half the parents are in the military. So the students are moving around from base to base, getting different experiences at different schools. So they're going to be coming from different places. They're not going to have the same experiences. So it's good to know what the background of the students is. And in AEE 311, I got introduced to what FFA and what SAEs are. Like I stated before, I didn't come up through an ag program, so I didn't know what these were. I didn't know all the stuff that goes into FFA. I didn't know what an SAE was, but this class helped me to learn and what they are and appreciate what they give to students. Finally, Wildlife 209 was Animal Handling and Care. This class can transfer over into the animal science classes because there may be different techniques to handling wild animals versus domesticated animals, but they're similar methods for which you handle either animal. So I think that the skills will transfer over fairly easily from one class to the other. Next is professional development activities. I've gone to several different professional development workshops, both with Penn State and on my own. We went to PAAE and NAAE, where I went to different workshops to learn different skills and techniques to help educate students. And I went to the New Jersey Ag Teachers Association meeting to see how things differ between Pennsylvania and New Jersey with how they run their workshops and how they run their organization. I also went to a landscaping workshop where the skills that I learned in that class, in that workshop, I may not be able to use in my student teaching because I'm not going to be doing any landscaping, but I can use it in a future teaching position. If I could coach a CDE team in it, I could help a student find an SAE with it, or I could start a class in teaching students how to lay paver stones, how to just make a nice looking landscape. And prior to coming to Penn State University Park, I went to Penn State Du Bois, where I achieved an associate's degree in wildlife technology. And while I was here, I got a minor in wildlife and fishery sciences. And I think these will help me especially with helping to coach Northern Burlington's Environment and Natural Resources CDE team, as well as the natural resources units that I will be teaching. Because some of the skills that I learned while getting my associate's degree will transfer over into what they need to know and what they plan to learn, such as how to use a GPS, how to read a topographic map with a compass, how to use a dichotomous key, and as well as plant and animal identification. And some of the certifications that I've got 2 certifications for this major. I've got the National Safe Tractor and Machinery Operation Programs certificate. So with this certificate, I am certified to teach students how to safely operate tractors and other large machinery, such as maybe not a bulldozer, but a front loader, which Northern Burlington has one. So if I need to drive that at some point or teach the students how to drive it, I will be able to because I will have that certification. The other certification I have that will be helpful at Northern Burlington is the Google Classroom Instructor Certification. Dr. McLean uses Google Classroom for her students, so it will be helpful to me to have this certification because I will then be able to use this to teach her students what they need to know to properly use Google Classroom and where to find the different information that they will be looking for on this platform. It is a lot more than just what you would do on regular Google. You can make sheets, you can make polls, you can make a lot of stuff on Google Classroom, which I think will be very helpful during my student teaching experience. And for internships, I've had 2 internships that I think will help me out in this, during my student teaching. The first one was my internship at the Kika Elk Center, which Keystone Elk Country Alliance. During this internship, I did informal education with groups of people on just the world around them, what's going on in the what's going on around the Elk Center, elk behavior, elk biology, how they're acting, why they're acting the way they are. I was there during the rut, so it was fun to explain how their behavior differs during the rut as opposed to the rest of the year, because most of the year they're not out at the Elk Center. They're away from there. They don't want to be there. But they do like to go there during the rut because that's where the best food is for that time of year, and they can all meet up there. The other internship that I've had is my working with the Upward Bound program here on campus. I came up through the Upward Bound program whenever I was in high school, and it really helped me to get to where I am, because I don't know if I would have gone to college if I hadn't gone to Upward Bound. I probably would have found a job somewhere and just done something else. But working with Upward Bound, I got to work with their students to to lead them during workshops, to help facilitate their workshops, and to chaperone them during their trips. Over the summer, we went to I think I think it was Inner Harbor Aquarium we went to, and I helped to chaperone the students around the aquarium. And that will be helpful whenever I'm taking students on field trips or to national convention. So, like I said, with dealing with diversity, I will need to know how to include different groups and different examples of people from different backgrounds. If I'm using all of my examples, like people for the students' names like Steve and Jeffrey, people from backgrounds where those aren't common names aren't going to feel very included in the classroom. So I need to use different names from different cultures, examples from different parts of the world, different parts of the country, just so that I can include more people. And I think this will make the classroom more fun and exciting, because you'll get to learn more about the world as a whole, not just your little section of it. Next, how will I make the most out of my student teaching experience? This one I think is the most important question, and it's probably also the hardest question, because I haven't done it yet. I have plans for what I want to do, but I haven't been there yet. I've been there on visits, but I haven't taught a full cohesive unit there yet. So, my cooperating center is Northern Burlington Regional High School. It's found in Burlington County, New Jersey, and there's a lot of local agriculture in the area. Whenever I first thought of New Jersey, I didn't think that there was a lot of agriculture there, which is weird because New Jersey is the Garden State, so you'd think that whenever someone thinks of New Jersey, they're going to think of, oh, there's going to be a lot of agriculture there because there's going to be a lot of plants there. But the school, there's multiple small farms and large farms around that help out the program, because the local farmers, like I said, will help teach the students for their CDEs, they'll help coach them, they'll help out by giving presentations in the classroom if the teacher asks them to, which I think will be very helpful. And for their agri-science program, they have 5 agri-science teachers. Dr. McLean, who is my cooperating teacher, teaches the introductory agriculture courses at the middle school. So she's teaching their 7th and 8th grade students just the introductory courses to animal science, plant science, and just what agriculture is, what the FFA is, what the SAEs are. The other 2 teachers that I will be teaching with are Mr. Hayes and Mr. DiNucci. They are the ag mechanics teacher and one of the ag mechanics teachers and one of the animal science teachers. So I will be teaching advanced animal science with Mr. DiNucci, and I will be teaching small engines with Mr. Hayes, which will not only be a learning experience for my students, but for myself as well, because while I'm interested in the topic, I don't know a lot about it at the moment, but I'm willing and open to learn, because I know that I'm not going to get very far in life if I decide, well, I'm good enough as I am now, I'm not going to bother learning anymore. So while I'm there, I will be teaching 6 courses. And the first course that I'll start teaching, or as of now that I have planned, is the CASE AFNR class. After that, I will pick up the Ag 7 class, which is the Agri-Science 7. This is the introductory course for the 7th grade students. This is a 9-week course, so not a very long course, but I will be their teacher for their entire quarter, so I think that will be a fun experience. Then I will start with Agri-Science 8 for 3 units, and then I'll pick up the Small Engines course, where I'll be teaching the students just about some of the systems you can find in the small engine, how to reassemble the small engine, and how to troubleshoot and make sure that you don't have as many issues with your engine. And then with Mr. DiNucci, I will be teaching 2 sections of advanced animal science, and I have them staggered so that I start teaching one at the beginning of the unit and the other one halfway through the unit, and then at the end I'll pick up an additional one on cells and tissues. I think this gives me a good background in the different areas of agriculture that they teach, because I will be getting a little bit of plant science, a little bit of animal science, some environmental and natural resources, and some on the different areas of agriculture in the circles of agricultural education. And I'll also be helping the students develop their communication skills. So how do you properly use social media? How do you search for things on the internet? How do you properly write papers to get your point across on what you want to teach to somebody else? For lesson content, I have, like I said, I have a lot of different units that I'm going to be teaching, but these are some of the main ones that I'm focusing on for right now. I'll be teaching the natural resources unit, which is, I'll be teaching the natural resources unit in environmental science. So during this unit, I'll teach students about what trees are local to the area, what animals are local to the area, how to identify the different trees and animals, and how to identify their tracks, which I've found during my last visit that they have casts of animal tracks that they haven't used. So I plan to use those casts to help the students identify different animal tracks for the native and local animals of New Jersey and just around where they are. I also plan to teach the students a little bit about how to test water for quality using macroinvertebrates, which are the smaller insects and animals that live in the bodies of water. Another unit is the What is Agriculture unit, and during this one I plan to teach students about areas that aren't traditionally thought of as agricultural careers that actually are and have some connections to agriculture. There's a lot of different things that you wouldn't think of because they're, like I said earlier, they don't have the sows, cows, and plows, so why would you think that it's agriculture? But like one of the things like natural resources, part of that is mining. So the town I grew up in before they closed down, it was a mining town. People would go to people worked in the coal mines. That's where a large amount of that provided a lot of money to the economy, and once that went away, there was less people and less business in the area, so that had a major impact on the town I grew up in. And it's important for students to know that this is also an area of agriculture. Just because it doesn't have animals and plants all the time in it, it doesn't mean that it's not an area that is agricultural and needs to be talked about. So during my student teaching, there are some dates that I will not be student teaching based because of the school's schedule. Northern Burlington is closed during Martin Luther King Day, the weekend of President's Day, and on March 20th they have early dismissal. And one thing that I find interesting is that from April 9th to April 17th they have a spring break, so their students get to just not have class for a week and a half. Which, during my high school experience, I would have loved that, because the only time I got out of school during high school was if I was sick or if I had open campus finals, which were a lot of fun, except for my mom. She didn't enjoy that very much. She didn't like knowing that I could be anywhere in northern Cambria. Right. So during this semester, I've noticed some strengths to myself which also have their own drawbacks. One of them is digital literacy. While I may not like to use my social media accounts, I know the importance of them. I know that I can find good connections with my social medias and that I can find information on find good information on how to teach and how to properly navigate using Google Scholar. It's one of the good ways to find information for research papers. Another strength that I've noticed about myself is my willingness to learn. Even if I don't have an interest in some area, I'm usually curious enough to want to learn more about it. I like to learn because I like to know things. I'm curious. I want to know what's going on in the world around me, and I want to be able to share this knowledge with others. This is part of the reason why I wanted to be an educator in the first place. I like learning, and I like sharing what I have learned. So that's one, like I said, that's one reason why I chose. And another strength I have is that I feel I'm a very compassionate person. I may not be very open about my own thoughts and emotions, but I'm usually there if someone else needs me to be there for them. I will, and I feel that this is an important trait for a teacher to have, because if your students don't think you care, why are they going to listen to you? If they don't think that you care about them and their education, then they're not going to listen to a word you say. And some of my goals. One of the things that I've worked on, and people have noticed that I've grown in a lot, is confidence. I personally don't think I have a lot, but I've been told that they've seen a change and a growth in that, and I want to get to a point where I can see that in myself. Another goal is to gain new skills to improve my teaching ability. And the main factor is ag mechanics. I don't know a lot about it. I want to know more, but I currently don't know a lot. And I hope to, during my student teaching, spend time with Mr. Hayes and the other agri-science teacher, or ag mechanics teacher, and gain new skills in ag mechanics that I don't have yet, but I want to have. I also want to improve my current skills. I know I'm good at some things, but I know I could be better at those things. So I want to get to a point where I'm confident enough in my abilities to be like, okay, I can do this. And the final goal I have is that I want to discover who I really want to be, which is something that everyone struggles with. I don't quite know exactly who I want to be, but I would like to discover that throughout the course of the next semester. No? And thank you for coming.
Some questions from our teacher ed panel, but be thinking for those in the audience as well as those online.
Abbie, thank you so much for sharing. We appreciate having you here and working through this. I have several questions, but we'll disperse them over the next 15 minutes as we go. I really want to dig a little deeper into this issue of confidence, okay? And so, as you look at the units you've identified to teach in your internship in the spring, I would like for you to identify me the one unit that is going to bring you the most joy to teach.
I think not quite one unit, but units would be the different natural resources units that I'm going to teach, just because that's the area that I've been the most passionate about. That's why I went to Penn State Du Bois, because I wanted to learn how to take care of the natural world. So I've always been very passionate about that area. I like learning about nature. I like being out in nature. And I think that to share what I know and to do it in a way that the students have fun learning about it would be a very good experience, and I can't think of the word. I'm going to say fulfilling for me.
Yeah. I want to drill down a little bit more. You've identified for me an area. That's an area I probably could have guessed. In that area, could you tell me a unit? What's one unit you're going to teach in natural resources?
Well, I guess it would be more of subunits, because the natural resources in itself is the unit. So I think for that would be...
Okay, so you have a 3-week unit on natural resources.
Yeah.
And in that 3-week unit on natural resources that you're excited to share about, what's one big idea that you hope kids leave with after 3 weeks of instruction?
I want my students to leave with an appreciation of the natural world and the importance of the animals in the ecosystem, because even if we don't like some of them, I don't think anybody likes mosquitoes, they do play a very important role in the ecosystem. Even if we might not know exactly what it is, they're still important in the grand scheme of things. So I want...
Share with me an example on how you're going to instill that with the activity in that unit. Because I'm sure you thought of some fun thing you just can't wait to do with students.
Well, one activity that I'm going to have my students do is they're going to assess the water quality of the eco-pond, and they're going to do that using macroinvertebrates. So depending on the weather, we might actually go out and use the the actual pond itself, and they might actually get to take traps out and observe the macroinvertebrates that are in the water. But if the weather's not great at the time that we're doing the unit, I have an activity where we have a bucket that has little pictures of macroinvertebrates, and they've got to pick out the right ones, or they've got to pick out a sample, and they use those based off of their pollution tolerance to see how good the water quality is.
Excellent. I would encourage you to talk to Dr. McLean. I bet you units can be reorganized to make sure that weather was good enough to make that an authentic experience. Now, what is a unit that you have assigned to you that you have the most trepidation or anxiety about in the spring? You're like, you know what? I know it's important, but this is one that I'm not too confident in.
I think that would be the engine reassembly unit, because during my ag mech class we got the engine apart, but we couldn't put it back together.
Okay. And so now we have identified a content that and everybody can see your passion and where you're ready to rock that out. We've identified some content that you have concern about. To lead this line of questioning, I want you to identify for me 2 different strategies a new young or student teacher could utilize to address not having confidence in a content area or unit. So in your case, what could you specifically do if you're having trouble getting the engine put back together?
Well, one thing that I could do if I'm having trouble is use the owner's manual for that specific engine, because the owner's manual will tell you where the parts go, what the parts are. It's got diagrams to show you how to put it together, how everything fits together. And the other thing I could do is ask the professional teacher who's there with me what I'm doing wrong, or what I could fix about how I'm trying to put the engine together.
Very good. Sometimes the best way we can show confidence is when we have the confidence to ask for help. Very good.
We have some questions from our online audience for
Please.
you. So Dr. McLean wants me to tell you that she is so excited to learn that you got some Google training. And
That was fun.
You're using Google Classroom with her. Her question for you is, how do you think you will best be able to work with the fact that you're going to be in a multi-teacher department and that every teacher might have varying styles and communication skills?
Let me think. So, working with multiple teachers is going to be a challenge, because like you said, everyone will have their own way of doing things. They're going to have their own communication strategies. They're going to have their own ways they do things. But I think that's the best part, because then you get to learn how different teachers do things, and you get to see how different teachers run their classrooms, so that you can decide, okay, I do want to do this, or I don't want to do this. And you just figure out what kind of classroom you want to run. Does that answer your question? Or?
I mean, I think so. Do you feel comfortable with your answer? I'm reading what's on the screen. All right, and then you have one more question from the online audience. This comes from Manny Vanier.
All right.
Amanda said that she really likes how you mentioned that every student is going to have an SAE project, but how do you plan on handling a parent who might not understand the why behind the SAE and might not want their students doing an SAE project?
Well, one of the ways that I would do that is whenever the students are coming in for like the ag fair or whatever, I would have the parents also be invited. So the parents would be introduced to the idea of what SAEs are, what the FFA is. They'd be introduced to the 3-circle model as well as their kids. And I would try to get videos either videos or parents of current students to talk about how their children have benefited from performing the SAE projects or doing the CDEs, to show from the parents' perspective of, oh, this is a good thing. I want my kid to do this. I'm glad that I had them do these things.
Thank you.
Abbie, can you tell me what a check for understanding is? And provide me an example of how you might do that in your instruction.
Well, one way, or check for understanding, is to make sure that the students understand what or the content that you're trying to teach them. And one method of doing this is to ask them to put up like 1, 2, or 3 fingers for how confident they're feeling with the material, or you can have them gauge for thumbs up, thumbs down, or thumb in the middle for, okay, how am I feeling on this information? Or you could have you could do like a Plicker quiz real quick, have them use that and determine what they've learned so far in the lesson and what you still need to work on, what you need to go back to. Yep.
Abbie, taking PAAE, NAAE, and JAAE out of the equation, what are your options to advance and develop yourself in content areas that you may not be comfortable with?
Well, I could go to different workshops that are run through Penn State itself, and I can also probably I can work to find workshops in other places that can help me. I can also take online classes in different areas. One of the things I was kicking around was possibly once I get myself situated where I want to be and doing what I want to do, I could attend like summer classes at a CTE center to get some of the ag mech skills, so I could get myself more confident in welding and other areas like that. And like I said, I can go to different workshops, find other classes on my own.
There's probably people in the community that might
That too.
right?
Yeah, community involvement. Yeah.
So you mentioned the three-circle model of FFA, classroom instruction, and SAE, and you're someone who's very passionate about natural resources. If you have a student who's very passionate about natural resources, obviously they're getting your classroom instruction. You mentioned the natural resources CDE, but what might be some suggestions for SAE projects to really complete that three-circle model for the student?
Well, one SAE project possibly would be like I mentioned, they could do water quality survey. They could, if they live on their own farm, they could assess the water quality of neighboring streams. They could check the just the health of the habitat around them with the skills that they've learned through the CDE and the classroom instruction. And another one that I think would be cool is if they if they knew someone who ran, say, a deer farm, they could work there and work with deer production as opposed to like cattle production, goat production, and just see the differences in how wild animals are raised as opposed to domesticated ones.
So Abbie, you mentioned in your presentation that you earned the NSTMOP certification.
Yeah.
You spelled it out for all of us. Thank you for that. So my question to you, and the answer can't be because you made me, but other than that, why would you take the effort or initiative to go get a certification such as NSTMOP or Project Wild or Project Wet?
Well, one good reason for that is one thing is you can get a lot of resources out of those certifications. So with the Safe Tractor one, there's a lot of resources available once you've got that certification. So you'll have different worksheets or quizzes available that you can then give to your students. Another one is, I don't know if you can actually legally teach your students how to safely drive a tractor if you don't have that certification.
Very true. All right, thank you.
Questions from the audience?
Noah?
Okay, so you could say that gaming or having your students gain interest in your topics would be somewhat easy, but how do you plan on inspiring them to be better people like you've stated in your presentation?
Well, to get my students to be better people, I wouldn't make it mandatory, but I would suggest different community service events. Have them go out and help out in the community, help each other in the classroom. Just be open and available people to do these different things. So just help them gain the skills and the confidence that, oh, I can do this, or oh, this is fun, this is interesting. I like doing these things. I like helping other people. Do you have a question?
And you mentioned that one of your first exposures to FFA and SAE was through AE 311.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, as you're moving forward and you're going to be advising and being the leader of an FFA chapter, what is the number one thing that you're excited for in seeing students interact in that sphere?
I think I'm excited to see how they interact with each other and how they interact with the community around them. Because, like I said, I didn't come up through that program. I don't know how it all works from a student standpoint. I've learned how it works from an advisor standpoint, but the students that I've seen that are in FFA together or just stuff like that, they all seem to be really close with each other. So I'm excited to see the interaction between these students and their close-knit friend groups.
Abbie, you are going to be going out of state. You've had this nice cohort kind of around you that lifts you, you know, and kind of all share these experiences together. You're going to be by yourself, for one of the furthest folks away. What are some things, or have you thought about some things, without being too personal, of course, ways for self-care, how to energize yourself, keep things going?
Well, I will be away from my immediate family and I will be away from my cohort, but I will still be able to like contact them over the phone if I want to. We can Skype, we can do just digital meetups and just still talk to each other, share resources, share experiences, vent to each other. But I won't be completely alone because I will be living with family. So I will have them to help with the mental health-ish things that go on whenever you're stressed out because you're away from home, you're experiencing things for what seems like the first time your students act out really bad. I will have people there who are able and willing to help me with these experiences.
It's a great place to end. Will you help me in congratulating Ms. Smith?